Hi guys, welcome back to another video. It is, my hair is doing some fun things this morning. It's beautiful. I was watching a Marie Folio. Hi, welcome to the channel. If you haven't been here before, I'm Jay. Gonna have so much fun today. You will not be the same human that you were before you clicked on this video. Yay! Celebrate good times, come on. I was watching a Marie Folio video yesterday called, it was in a course called B School that she runs, and I was watching it and she said something about strengths, like what is it that makes you feel strong? They are your strengths. And I was like, never thought about it like that before. But one of the things that makes me feel strong is filming videos and speaking, and I always thought about strengths, and I think obviously this is also true. Strengths is something that you're really good at, and it's like, you know, it's a gift, it's an ability, it's something that you do quite well. Like, you know, if I was to think of like, you know, holding a 20 kilo weight right now, and my ability to lift that is like my strengths, and my ability to kind of grapple with the resistance or the weight of certain things is like, you know, my strength. And that is like genuinely one of my own personal strengths in this lifetime, which is really cool. Thank God, because I've definitely been given my share of weight and resistance to grapple with in this lifetime. But when she said that, I was like, hang on a second, what is it that makes me feel very strong? And speaking and filming and recording is one of those things. So I have made it my mission to do more of it, and also doing a lot more speaking gigs this year, which I'm very much looking forward to. And there's also just something in me right now that's kind of guiding me, and it feels like it's a calling to speak and to share and to, you know, get out what is within me. And I actually want to speak to this exact point because this feels very like relevant and like personal to where I'm at right now. But because right now there's this voice inside of me being like, all right, one more video, and then it's kind of telling me like, okay, and when enough is enough. And when it comes to, I have learned a fair bit in the last 6 months about inner voices and which to follow and which to not follow, and what is real and what is not real. And I'm still unpacking this, so let's do it together. But because I am like, I definitely would not condone listening to every like voice or kind of inner, you know, whatever. I think there's a lot of, I mean, when I was first starting out on this spiritual journey, there's so much in, you know, the collective, the spiritual kind of handbook, that playbook that everyone's like spewing out about follow your soul and follow your calling and follow your heart and follow your intuition and follow this. And I feel like there's, you know, Jesus Christ, literally, there's so much that can go wrong. There's so much that can go wrong. I was very naive about this. and I remember having this like real come to Jesus moment where I was on my knees recently, just being like, but I thought all I had to do was follow you. Like you told me to just follow you and everything would be fine. Like if I just followed this thing, everything would be fine. And it's not fine, it sucks. And it's like, but it's like, what are you actually following? And because there's so much to follow. And I'm writing a blog post about this at the moment, because I'm using, you know, writing and speaking to unpack my own experience with this, because holy mother of God, it's been really, I mean, if you're following something, that means that something is leading you, and something in the world and in the psyche and, you know, in the collective, sometimes the things that we follow aren't always good for us. Like we've got to be really, I've learned this firsthand in the last couple of years as well, like the people that we're following do not always want the best for us. And I am going to also put my hand up and hold myself completely 100% accountable here. I've led people in the wrong direction. Completely unintentionally. I had no idea I was doing it, but I have led people astray. What I mean by that, I have been so obsessed with success by the world's definition of like being super powerful and being able to create on demand and being able to get the results that I want in exactly the right time every single time that I need them, and being like almighty and like all this and all that, and being so like under the spell of my own inadequacy, and then like letting that drive me into this like festering hunger that just like overtook me completely and was driving all my actions. to the point where I accidentally got embroiled in a really like just not a great kind of dynamic, and I ended up following this teacher online, and she was, you know, very prolific and very she said like her voice and the spell that she was weaving with her words was incredibly intricate and beautiful. And when I say intelligent, I mean like it was just so like it was a lot, and it was very, I just wanted it to be true. Like I wanted so much of what she was saying to be true because it seemed like a really beautiful and perfect, scary, but like good, good. Seemed like a solution to a lot of the experiences and, you know, problems that I was having or suffering that I was experiencing. And I mean, isn't that what we all kind of go looking for when we start out? It's like, how do I end my suffering? How do I like get what I want? Like, isn't that, you know? And that's why, you know, I think if it's not why we start out, it's definitely one of the reasons that kind of drives us into the arms of God, or drives us into the arms of something that's, you know, not God, but very much looks and feels like God. And one of the key points that I'm learning or figuring out is who and what do I trust inside of myself, and then who and what do I trust out in the world, who and what is good for me to follow, who and what is not good for me to follow. And this is it's discernment, right? It's a process of, and discernment just means to judge correctly or clearly, have clear sight on something. And it's so funny because in the past I was one of the most judgmental. My ego was incredibly like very, you know, in the state of separateness that I experienced, my consciousness was very judgmental of others. Like I felt a lot of, because my own, you know, insecurities, I was like, that was just projected into like judgment of others. And so the expression of that is healthy is like an ability to discern and be able to see clearly and make a good like assessment of things. So like that is this, that is that, that is that, that is that. You know, this is who this person is, this is what they're doing, this is how they're pretending, this is their persona, this is their, oh my God. And so the biggest thing for me that I've been discerning, the challenge that I've just overcome and, you know, been experiencing is like, what in me, like what voices do I listen to? What parts of myself do I listen to? Because you guys know there's a lot inside of us. There's a lot that's, you know, speaking and grasping for attention. And especially when you start to put focus on this stuff, it's almost like it's just like comes alive. This whole inner world, this whole inner drama, you know, this whole inner like saga and play like comes to life. And it's so to be able to map the characters, to be able to map the psyche, to be able to hold in consciousness everything that's happening in your internal world is so it's a skill. And even right now I'm experiencing it of like this, it requires quite a lot of like energy, and it requires a lot of focus and discipline, connection, commitment, to not only, I guess what I'm experiencing right now is like, you know, having seen it and been in it and living in it for so long now, the experience for me is is delivering it. How do I deliver it to the world? How do I explain this stuff? And the best way I think I know how to do that right now, you know, if my intention right now, I totally forgot to say a prayer at the beginning of this video. God, may everything that I create guide people home to you. Thank you. Send out the protective forces of my psyche now to protect me and this work of art. I just thank you that, yeah, I'm articulating this and I'm offering my best. Amen. Hallelujah. As I think about, you know, showing up as my best self right now, I think about this because there's so much, and we don't, you know, we're not, you know, traditionally we're not taught about this stuff. I definitely wasn't. Had to kind of, you know, seek it out for myself. And I was talking to a mentor about this about a year or two ago, and I said something about like Tom Holland, who played Spider-Man. I was like, oh my gosh, like if art is mirroring life for him, like in the last Spider-Man movie, you know, the one with all the projections and holograms and the illusions everywhere, and he's just like in it, and he's like, you know, struggling to figure out what's real and what's not, if that is anything to go by, because I know that with a lot of actors and musicians and everyone, there's kind of this thing where what they're going through internally is then reflected in the work and the art that they're making, and then there's kind of this dance between, and I'm like, if that's what he's going through right now, holy shit, like someone go check on him. And she's like, the same information that's available to you is available to him, and you need to like just trust that if he needs it, he will find it, and he will, you know, he has to go on that journey of finding it. And I was like, because my heart was like, oh, like we need to go and like save the humans, like rescue them, like get this information into their hands. But she's right in the sense that, like, you know, we all have to like want it bad enough that we go on this journey of seeking, and that we go on this journey of like accessing and seeking out what is for us. And that's because that's part of the journey. Whatever led you to this video, whatever it is in you that was like refused to settle for anything less than finding out something that like hits the spot. It's like, yes, that's exactly what I'm talking about. That's exactly how I feel. That's exactly what I'm experiencing. Whatever it is in you that wouldn't settle for anything less, like you keep cultivating that. Like it led you here, and it's going to keep, you know, leading you into where you need to go, because it's that piece that won't settle that really like, we got to like strengthen that, because otherwise, you know, what the fuck else are we doing? We're just settling for like almost it, but not really, like, you know, settling for a reality or an experience where we're like a little bit understood, but also feel completely misunderstood, and like something's off. And God, I felt that like in lesser and lesser degrees as I get closer and closer back to the core and the truth of God. But oh my gosh, it's just this like, this experience is, you deserve to feel like bang on. You deserve to feel understood. You deserve to feel met and held and seen for exactly who you are, and not feeling like you need to even a little bit squeeze yourself into a box that isn't actually right for you, or translate your soul into a terminology that's like, it's kind of what I'm talking about, but it's not what I'm like. You get to have that point, that exact specific thing where you're like, this is what I've been searching for my whole life. So just keep looking for it and keep searching for it, and you'll find it. I mean, you'll find it in yourself first and foremost, but you know, you'll find it in other people and teachers. And if there's a teacher or someone that doesn't really like resonate with you, I mean, ultimately, like the point that you're looking for is yourself, like is to have the experience of you and your authenticity in the world. But there are definitely teachers who will lead you back to that, and people who set an example for you, like myself, people who set an example for you. Does that sound really conceited? No, it doesn't. It's honest, you know. That's what I'm here to do. So I need to just, stop hiding from that. But there are teachers who have found this, like, you know, this place within themselves who can reflect back to you the possibility that it's available to you as well. And you don't have to settle. And this is how I think, you know, I'm processing this at the moment, but I felt in Christianity, like I very much resonate with the story, and I love Jesus, and my experience with Jesus like really helped me to save my own life. What I found with Christianity was like, there was just pieces that I just didn't, it wasn't the language of my soul. And when I read books like Women Who Run with Wolves, and I read stories and I read things that like, this is it, like this is my language, this is my soul's like unique note, the instrument that I'm as me here to play. And this is like, I'm not compromising, you know, like I'm not compromising at all the exacting standard of my own unique blueprint. Because, you know, like, fuck, it's the part in you that refuses to compromise and will keep searching and looking for the truth of who you really are no matter what. Just strengthen that. It's good. Led you here. It's going to keep leading you. It's good. That's a good thing. Follow that. That is good. What you do not follow. I want to talk about this because I said in my last video that I'd talk about it in my next video. I didn't realize that it would be happening so soon, but here we are. 2020, I was about to finish my first book. It's called Holy Fuck. If you haven't read it already, get excited. It's coming out. But I haven't told this story yet, so just bear with me. I had just finished a book writing course. I finished like a first draft of it, pretty like close to finish. And the next step was to then take it through a publishing round. And I experienced this voice in my head that said, hitchhike. I want you to hitchhike for 40 kilometers a day, every day for 30 days, and then you'll know the meaning of life. And when I say a voice, I mean like an audible feeling. It was a sensation, it was a voice, there was a visceral experience that came with it. It wasn't just like an errant thought in my head of like, oh, I should do that. It was like a whoa. And at the time, I didn't know how to distinguish that thought from my actual desires or my actual consciousness. I just thought it was like a part of me that really wanted to be expressed. And I was doing a lot of shadow work. I was doing a lot of, this is like just occurring to me. This is wild. I've been asking the questions about this, and this is my answer, right? Like I've been down, like getting these answers, but then this is like more of that. So this is just so wild, this experience. Thank you. I'll do my best. But I followed, like I felt like I didn't have a choice. Like it felt so strong, and I've been doing a lot of shadow work and working with pieces of myself and parts of myself that had been repressed. And you guys know, if you've done shadow work and any kind of work with this stuff, then often the things that we're taught to like look at the places within yourself that you've demonized and bring them home, like allow them the light, like express them. If you don't want to say something, say it. If you feel like this is like a devil talking to us, probably God. Like it's we're kind of like the what I was being shown and taught at that time was very much like just express what feels repressed. And because I had so much fear around this voice, because I felt so much like visceral emotion and response in my body, I was like, oh, it must be a piece of myself that I'm not acknowledging. It must be a part of myself that I've delved really deep down. And in a sense it was, but we're going to get to that in a sec, I think. But as I actually I kind of just left the book, and which is, bing, 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 red flag. But I left the book, and I even had a session with a mentor who was helping, with this book writing process. And I told her about it because, there was, go me, like just acknowledging the hell out of like myself and the courage that it takes. And everything that I'd been through at that point, it kind of told me that like shame is just a killer. Like, don't let shame prevent you from like telling people about the really deep, dark inner stuff that's going on, because like the lies like fester and like they thrive like in a bad way in shame. And so the more that you're kind of like, oh, but I don't want people to think I'm like, I don't want to talk about, you need to talk about that stuff with people that you trust and that can actually like, even if you don't get it right and you just kind of blurt it out to someone, whatever, that's fine. Just let it kind of come up to light. But really like with people that can understand this stuff. Because, I think it's a real like, the hint or the clue for me now, I think when something is a little bit like off and maybe there's something in my psyche that's kind of trying to like fuck with me, is that like there's a bit of shame around it. I'm like, oh, I don't really want to talk about this. I'm like, all right, well, that's when I know I need to talk about it and share it. Because shame just like creates even more distortion. And, when you start talking about this stuff like I'm doing now, even it brings light. Light is information, light is awareness, light enlightenment, light is knowledge. And so it brings like light, which creates clarity, which creates alignment, which like, it's like we talked about in one of my other videos, like, you've got the boxes in the room that are casting the shadows. The fact that the boxes and the shadows look terrifying is only because there's no light in the room. Go up, wipe the windows, clear the grime, there's light in the room, bring the box. Okay, it's not that scary, it's just a box full of my old shit, And so get the light in, let people in, like let them, share with them what's going on, talk to people about what you're experiencing as best as you can, even if you kind of like, I remember when I was first going through depression, anxiety, and I remember trying to like crack that barrier of letting my mum in to let her know that I was like, there was hell, there was a war, there was a brutal battle, like a World War III in my head. And just like it was so vulnerable to be like, because was almost my whole reality at the time. And it was so separate from like, there was such a big chasm between what I was experiencing in my head and then how she was, how people would perceive me, or like, it just felt, and you know, obviously again, it was all in my head, but I don't want to like use that to discredit or, you know, it's still it was still huge, but it was all in my head. But it was just like letting her in was like, it was so hard. So, but we went for this walk one day and I was like, look, I'm really struggling. There's like a battle in my head and it's like sucking on my energy, and I just don't, like, you just find the words, like even if you just sit there and cry, like sometimes that's all you need. It's just like find the words to let someone in. So yeah, I had a session with this woman and I was like, you know, this part of me, this is what I thought it was at the time, this voice is telling me to do. And I was kind of grappling with it. I was like, do you reckon that's bullshit or do you reckon it's legit? She's like, I reckon it sounds bullshit. And it's interesting because like I fought for this voice. Like I really fought for it in the sense of like, no, I legit think this is real. Like I think this is my intuition. I think this is like some really deep part of me that wants to like show me something. And again, in a sense it is, but not what I thought. But I just, yeah. And so I like packed up my whole fucking life. I even had a session with another girlfriend at the time, and she was like, she's a somatic body worker, and we did an energy clearing on it. And I was like, you know, there's this thing that I really want to do, but I'm so scared. Can you help me move through the fear so I can do it? Again, I was like in it, like I was backing this voice, and I did it. I ended up doing it, and I kind of packed up the book. The workshop had finished, this week-long book writing workshop, and it was like, write a book in a week. And I did. Like I wrote so much in a week. It was genius. It was incredible. It was freaking hard, but it was a lot. I have a lot to say about that, but I won't right now. But okay, it's cool. I can do this. I did it, and I had an experience, and I went hell to leather, and I was terrified. Like the morning before I left, I was almost throwing up with fear. But I would leave my house every morning very, very early, and I would walk onto the street and I would hitchhike, and I would like meticulously count the kilometers. Like I would kind of get my maps out and like track the distance and these trips that I had, and it took all of my energy. Again, red flag. Took all of my time, red flag. But it also like I had to overcome like massive levels of fear, and took like this like pretty insane almost level of nerve, discipline, to like resource, to like get myself over the fear of what I was doing, and to actually keep doing it, because there are a lot of voices in my other voices being like, this is what the fuck, like it's ridiculous, this is so stupid, like do not do this, I'm so scared right now. And it had all the elements, and again, this is another like key indicator, it had all of the elements of what I thought my life was about, which is adventure, which is curiosity, which is connection, which is putting myself out there on a limb and doing things that are weird and people think are strange, which is like all these things, and I'm like, all of these things that I love to do and that I know my soul is here for. Connection, adventure, travel, talking to people, meeting people, being a force in people's lives, a force for good in people's lives. I was meeting, I'd meet like 10, 20, 30 people every single day. I was getting in people's cars. I was trusting them not to kill me, but I was trusting them. I never felt like I was going to die. Not like spiritually and energetically I did, in the sense of like I was having ego deaths kind of. But see, again, there's so much of this stuff is like I'm still unpacking, but I would be standing by the side of the road, and the amount of energy kind of flooding through my body was just like, it was shaking. And I felt, afterwards, like I felt a lot. Like I felt a sense of liberation and freedom. I think when you've done anything that you were scared of, there's a sense of like energy, trapped energy being released, and stored energy being let go. And I really felt energized. I felt like I can do anything. Like if I can do this, are you kidding me? I can do anything. And I felt powerful and confident, and I was talking to people about my business, and I was having these honest, raw conversations with people where it was like, because people are like, and people are amazing, and honestly this really did help me make it as whatever it is. Like I'm hesitant and reticent to call it like good or bad, because what this did, a lot of it was like I really fell in love with humanity even more, and it just like struck away a lot of the fears I had around human beings, because it just ripped away the walls between us all. I was like, we are so not different. Like, and I remember the synchronicities of some experiences that I had where it was like, oh my God, there was like days that would mirror each other. Like the morning I would get in the car. I remember one morning I got in the car with this guy who had a near-death experience, and he was like, no, don't believe in God. There was like, nothing happened. Like, it was just blackness. Like, that's all there is when we die. That afternoon I got in and we just had a great chat and whatever. That afternoon I got in the car with this guy who was like a full-on devout Christian. He was talking about how close he is to God, and he's a musician and he records worship songs, and it's just his faith is the most important thing in the world to him. And, you know, I'd have these experiences with like old people and young, like it was just, oh my God, it was incredible. And all different cultures and backgrounds, like, yeah, it was so wild. But yeah, they really let you in. Like, I think people's drive time and their car time is a lot of it is like self-reflective. A lot of people just zone out and listen to the radio, but a lot of it was very like self-reflective and like chill. And it's a person's car, you know, it's an extension. In the archetypal realm, a car is like, you know, a symbol of what's driving you. Like, if you have cars in your dreams, think about that, what's driving you. But also, you know, it's how we get from place to place. It's our worldview, it's our belief system, it's our, what does it say in Women Who Run With Wolves? A car is like our cultural conditioning, like our, you know, the way that we view the world, our psyche's kind of, yeah, cultural, archetypal conditioning, I don't know. But it's like, it's all incredibly symbolic, and yeah, but it was so intimate. Like, people really opened up to me, and I think because I had gone first in the sense of like trusting my self, like putting myself out there, then they reciprocated in kind with, oh right, this woman's being incredibly vulnerable, I guess I can also be vulnerable here too. Like, this isn't an ordinary, and again, another element of this isn't an ordinary experience, so I can give myself permission to not respond in an ordinary way. And so I can hear myself and I can hear you guys being like, is this good or bad? What was it? What was the voice? Like, what were, you know, and I'm like, what was all this about? What happened? And honestly, I'm still figuring it out, but this is part of that. But I want you to look at, I was reading The War of Art by Stephen Pressfield, and this ties in, I promise, and it was saying that the shadow callings that call to us often contain elements that are very much like those of our actual calling. And I want you to look at, if there is a shadow calling that you're following at the moment, or something that you're doing that you're like, this actually doesn't feel right, this feels a little bit off, I want you to look at the elements as clues into more of what you actually want to do and what your actual calling is. Because there were so many elements, and I mean, like, I just said that before, but like, there were so many things that, yeah, taking people outside of the ordinary, connecting with people, creating intimate encounters, being in an enclosed and confined intimate container and space with people. People's, like, you know, even that thing about the car, like the psyche is being like their worldview, their cultural, like, language and the perception, the way that they view the world, like what carries them from one thing to another, what drives them. Did you see something just out of the corner there? Maybe it was just a trick of the light. We can talk about that later. I had this thing, forgive me for all these tangents, it's all, yeah, it's just part of how my brain works, but I was thinking the other day that shadows aren't a trick of the light. Because shadows aren't created, like, they are created by the light, but they're actually, a shadow is like if you see the TV behind me, like, the light is just the light, and then it's actually the TV that's creating the shadow. And so when people say shadow is like a trick of the light, it is, but it's the light and the object, like the interplay between them, creates the shadow. So just, yeah, think about, put that into your, like, repertoire for how you kind of think about shadow and light and all these things, because, you know, like, look, shadow, but even then, like, wild, because, like, this is the thing, right? Truth thing, real thing, and then this is the shadow. Like, if you chase that, you're never going to catch it. And this is, I guess this is what we're talking about, isn't it? It's like shadow callings. It's like the level of trust that I have to have right now to follow the thread of this conversation as it's kind of coming through me. Holy shit. But it's like if you're chasing, you're actually never going to catch it. And this is the piece of shadow callings. Like also in this book, The War of Art, Stephen Pressfield talks about shadow callings. They will drain your energy. And I said that before, like red flag. If it's something that's draining your energy and leaving you incapacitated. So the key for me, and like looking back, I'm like, oh fuck, I was fucked. At the end of these days, you know, I would be out from like sometimes 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning. I would wake up so that I could get out early and on the road, because it was less scary for me to be out standing on the side of the road at 3:30 or 4:30 in the morning when it was just tradies, and kind of like, you know, it was a little bit less weird than like the middle of the day and like on the Gold Coast, where people were like, everyone was out and about and people could be like, what the fuck is this chick doing? I felt a little bit, ironically, a little bit safer being on the road with just tradies. No, having said that, like so many people were so kind. There was a little bit of like saviorism in the sense that, anyway, maybe we'll talk about that later. The thing about shadow calling is that you drain time in it. You never actually get anywhere. And the piece of this for me was that I would always come home every single day. I would end up right back where I started. And the kind of the another kind of clue that you know that it's a shadow calling is that there's a sense of you don't actually make progress. And if I think about like at the time, I was like, this is so romantic, because I was like, I'm just coming home every single day. I always end up, no matter where I travel, I always come back home. But I also I wasn't making progress. I wasn't making progress in my business. I wasn't making progress in my book. I wasn't writing. I don't think. I maybe wrote a little bit each and every day, but not a lot. But I wasn't like, there wasn't a lot of kind of like actual physical like steps forward. And it's just, I guess the key that Stephen Pressfield talks about is like an incapacitation that happens with shadow callings, in that you are following this thing and it's like unconsciously or consciously you're incapacitating yourself in your ability to create what it is that you want, to follow your real calling. It's like shooting yourself in the foot unintentionally. But yeah, it's what this was kind of doing for me, as much as it was opening up so many like avenues, and I was kind of talking to people and, you know, having these experiences. I was also, energetically drained, and like financially I wasn't kind of making tracks or like progress in like financially. I was on Centrelink at the time, and I was kind of just going in circles with my financial situation. And in terms of like, and this is key, I feel like for me, I'm just realizing I wasn't building like sustainable long-term relationships. I was just kind of like cycling through this endless sea, or this conveyor belt of humans, and not like, you know, you think about like, I can connect with anyone deeply for a little minute, but that's not what like, you know, love, like real love is. I mean, yes, it can happen in an instant. Yes, it can be, of course, love is present in those like short-term interactions, but like real love and sustainable love, it's developed over time. Like real love, genuine love is showing up for someone consistently over time through all of the thick and thin. And as much as you can like, you know, love someone wholeheartedly for the 5, 10, 15, 20 minutes, half an hour sometimes I would do long trips like an hour each way, you know, an hour in a car with someone. You're not building relationships. Like you're not like really getting into the nitty gritty, because you're just kind of like having that. It's like that. And this is the piece about connection is, you know, the inverted experience of connection is addiction rather than, you know, love addiction rather than like connection. Is that, you know, and this is it's such a mind fuck, because it's like connection is the antidote to addiction, but like then how is connection then also an addiction? But human connection can be one of the most addictive things, because, you know, it's what we all want, but it's the way that you're using it. And I think I was using it in a way that was very I was just getting like the high of like the new connection, new person, new thing, new this, new experience. But then like it's not sustainable, like it's not real. It's not actually built over an extended period of time. You're just kind of in there, wham, bam, thank you, ma'am, and then you're gone. And I'm not saying those aren't holy encounters. You can have a holy encounter with someone that's just like very short and very real and very quick, and that's just all that it is. But like, for me, as someone who really values connection and relationship, like I choose to, you know, build sustainable long-term relationships, because that's what's really nourishing and important and imperative for my soul. So yeah, I wasn't doing that. throughout all of this, and you know, some other voices that kind of came up, and other things that I was asked to do. Free hugs. I'll give free hugs outside my local shopping centre. Sing outside my local shopping centre. I did that too, like kind of not karaoke style, but like busking kind of style. Dance outside my local shopping centre. I did that. Put a little like jelly bean box. Anyway, busked. And these things that, again, they had all these elements. How do these elements they were close but not quite it. And I don't want to say that this is like a bad thing, and I don't want to kind of write them off as like, you know, this is terrible and awful and evil and whatever. It just, they weren't it. And I feel even now you know, I think we're all getting closer all the time. There's like this concentric circle thing that happens where, you know, if you think about the rings around an archer's bullseye, like to send means to miss the mark. And when I think about like it, I think about the bullseye. I think about the thing I'm here to do is like, it's like the center. It's the center point in the middle, the north, the middle, this middle point. I think we're always getting closer. Well, I mean, sometimes it looks like we're going further away because we're just like, you know, wandering out in the edges of we're out here, or maybe we missed the whole portal completely. But I think, you know, if you're on the path and you're focused and committed, and you know, you're conscious, like we're always getting closer, even if it looks like we're not. But to keep going to like the center of the bullseye, to find that middle point, that mark where it's like, this is it, this is what I'm here to do, this is my life's purpose, my mission, my goal, and this is everything. That's the key. And I think if it's just like, you know, right now I'm like, okay, well, if I can just be as honest with myself about when it feels like, when I actually feel like I'm a bit off, and then just stay conscious and present as I like get closer and closer and closer to that, then I'm doing great. Like that's all I ever really need to do. And I think all of these things, as much as they weren't healthy in the sense that like they weren't healthy in the sense that they were kind of like weird, distorted versions of my purpose and weird expressions of what I'm really here to do and who I really am. They are also really great tools to awaken me, because, you know, these kind of things are fucking radical. Like, you know, you're having this life experience where you're like, all right, I'm going to wake up and like, I feel like I need to go give free hugs to people on the street today. Like it's, the last one was door knocking, the last one that I've, you know, broken free of the pattern, but the voice that I had, it was kind of crept up on me, and then it was there for months, kind of just like, you know, infiltrating like little pieces of my psyche. Would be like, go knock on doors, like I just want you to go knock on doors. And I was very stressed out. This is like when this was at peak periods, and I think this obviously has something to do with it when you're stressed, you know, your ability to discern and identify what's like real and what's not. And I think it has something to do with like these negative entities and, you know, things in the metaphysical realm like kind of play off your internal fears. Like they use the things that you're afraid of to kind of exacerbate them and then feed off the fear that it creates inside of you. Like I'll talk about that in a sec. But the last one was, go knock on doors, and there wasn't a time frame or a limit, but I was shown like 11 doors in my community, and it's like, go and ask people if they need prayer or healing. And it's like, again, like I'm a healer, like, or I am here to heal. And so I'm like, okay, like what? Okay, cool. Yeah. Like I'm here to do that. Like I'll do that. Like, it's just, in a way, I think I was right when I said, you know, it is pieces of ourselves that are like unexpressed, because I wasn't kind of, you know, using and, you know, I wasn't consciously like activating the healer archetype and like dancing with this archetype in a healthy, conscious way. And so, you know, I feel like it's, it kind of comes out the side wall a little bit, like blows out, you know, when you lock it in the attic, it climbs out the window kind of thing. So I think it was trying to express itself in a different way. But then I also, you know, believe that there was some foul play here, in the sense that like these negative entities and attachments that feed off fear, that feed off our ignorance, that feed off our unconsciousness, that need fear to stay alive, you know, like a parasite, an energetic parasite, an entity, they kind of, you know, they sense and they can feel, and I guess they are like powerful vessels and stewards and conduits of awakening in that sense, because, you know, you realize really quickly that shit's not okay. But they really feed off the places where we're not like actively, healthily channeling, you know, being our best selves, and where we're really afraid of that, because, and then they kind of make it even harder for us, or worse for us. They like amplify it and exaggerate it. Because I would just feel like shit. Like I would do these things, and like I said at the beginning, like I would feel good a little bit afterwards, because I was like, whoa, I just did something scary, but then I would feel terrible. And it got to the point I was doing this knocking on doors thing, and I was walking into people's like homes, like not like uninvited, like I would knock on the door, I wasn't breaking and entering. There's a whole other story, and one of the first homes that I went to ended up being the first home that I went to ended up being the home of this incredibly, you know, very spiritual couple, two women, not romantically involved, but couple who are incredibly connected to the ethereal realms. And one of them is, helped me kind of navigate this. But that was like a whole nother piece. But I feel like it's, some of these places I would leave and I'd be like, what the fuck was that? You know, like, what was that? Like, what was that was guiding me into that? What was that like took me there and said those things, and, you know, like was telling me to do that? And I feel like when you're following God, and I'm writing about this at the moment, but when you're following God and when you're following a good, you know, a guide that is serving God, and a guide that is like actually, you know, helpful and wants the best for you, like something that's of the light, there's a sense of like joy and bliss and like comfort and peace and security, not confusion. And this is what I'm, you know, the discernment piece is like, if you're feeling like weird and a bit creeped out and a bit like, I just don't really get this, I don't think that's God. I know that's not of God. That's not of love. I mean, everything is of God. There's nothing that's not God, because God is all that is. And these beings aren't, you know, I feel like there's actually, when I said foul play before, this is where we're getting to the really nitty gritty stuff, but these beings have the ability to masquerade. These beings have the ability to like put on and pretend that they are something else. And so, you know, when I was talking to, like, you know, I have a channel and I open my channel and I've been able to communicate and receive, you know, information and downloads. I never kind of thought about what I was channeling. And this is another piece that I'm learning to be really clear about now. I was just like, cool, I'm getting information. This is really cool. Like, awesome. Bring it on. I think I'm way more awake and aware to like how careful I need to be about what I'm actually channeling, because like there are things, and not everything is good. Like, not everything wants what's best for us. It is a very minute percentage, but not everything is good. And it's like people, like not everyone wants what's good for us. And again, like, you know, I think in Women Who Run With Wolves, you know, Clarissa talks about how, like we're buddies, like first name basis, me and Clary, babe, chill. She's a babe, she's a friend. But she talks about how, like, you know, there is, she says in the book, there is a such thing as like unredeemable. I'm still figuring that one out. But it's like, she says that she's like, that most of it is just like unconsciousness and is redeemable, but maybe not now. But then a lot of it, like there is, you know, she says there is a little bit of percentage that is just like pure irredeemable evil. But it's such like, in comparison, it's such a small. And I think, you know, the trick of the shadow is to kind of make it seem bigger than it is, you know, like, and make it seem scarier than it is. And when you actually kind of, and this is why I'm talking about this stuff, because, you know, the trick of the shadow, and you might be in this right now and experiencing this, and I hope if you are, that this, obviously I hope this brings you closer to God and brings you peace and comfort and just like a sense of safety and security within yourself, and like, oh my God, I can actually do this and get through this and navigate this. But it's like, and it's a key, is like, you know, anything that's of God will bring you back to peace. Use your peace as a guide. Like if it's taking you into this place of like confusion and doubt and fucking like, but I think that's the trick, you know, that's the shadow and be like, ooh, like I'm, you know, I'm gonna like this, like, you know, the it's not doing it right now, but like depending on where the TV was positioned, it could make the shadow could appear like way bigger than the TV. You know what I mean? So it's like, I think that's what the shadow tries to do, is like uses the light, like a trick of the light, to kind of make itself, you know, if you've got like a light and then you've got a shadow puppet, she's like, oh, I'm big and scary, but then the actual thing is like this tiny little thing that's like, boop, you know? And so if you can like look past, I know it's, you know, it can be, there's a lot of like, and this is the thing, they feed off that fear. Because it's like, if you're afraid, then you're generating fear in your body. And this is something that one of my, the mentor that I was, or the woman that I was talking about told me this. She's like, they feed off fear. And if, you know, you're consistently creating experiences where you're very afraid and you're generating a lot of fear, and it might be under the guise of like cultivating courage, but there's a difference. We're getting into the very, very refined, like fine stuff for me right now. But there is a real difference between like, you know, facing your fears and using courage and exercising that muscle, and then like just doing shit that terrifies you. Because if you think about it, like if you're constantly like in a place of fear, then that's a lot for these, if they feed off fear, that's a lot of food for them. It's a lot of that to feed off. And so I think they create these experiences, or convince you to have these experiences, because then you can like, you know, you're generating, you're afraid for a lot of the time. But if you can then see through that and look at it and be like, hang on a second, there's something in me that's feeding off of this fear, and if I just face my fear, and if I just like look at it, and again, we're getting so into the nitty gritty, and this is super refined stuff, so if you're still with me right now, hallelujah. But for me, it was just like finding that tiny little speck of fear, finding that tiny little grain inside of me that was like, okay, where, like the thing that's like creating this, you know, this shadow is kind of like, oh, what's the thing? What's the actual thing? And then just facing it and being like, what? Like, and saying to the shadow, like, come at me. Like, you can't actually touch me. Like, boom, come at me, bro. And I just remember having these moments, because when I was in it, I was very like confused and couldn't really find, like, couldn't tell you which way was up, kind of thing. But I remember having these moments of like lucidity where I was like, none of this is of God. Like, this isn't. And kind of God's voice coming through and being like, you don't have to listen to any of this. Like, this is all bullshit. And just the relief that would come over me, because I think this is another trick of the light, trick of the shadow, whatever trick as well. We're getting there. We're getting closer and closer every single second. But it's like it used my like best qualities to kind of against me, because like my faith and my like, you know, incredible vulnerability and willingness to just, I will do anything for God, for love. I will do anything. And I'm incredibly like, when it comes to that stuff, like I take it very seriously. Like, you know, God has asked me to do some weird ass shit before, and I've done it, and I've had incredible experiences because of that. But I think, you know, when you're dealing in this realm, you know, there's beings that maybe that like want to use that against you and see that quality and try and like make it into something ugly. And, you know, the distortion is that like, you know, if you guys have, the distortion is that you know, that beautiful gift, that willingness, like, 'cause it's obedience, but it's not obedience in the sense that like, you know, like a dog is obedient to its owner, or a slave. It's not, you're not a slave. And this is the thing, I think I was starting to feel like I didn't have a choice in this. And, you know, God, like faith, like real faith and real relationship with God, or the God I know, the God of goodness, like isn't a slave master dynamic. It isn't like I'm a dog on a lead and I'm going to follow you where you tell me to go, because it's a dynamic, but it's not a God. It's not a good dynamic. And I don't, you know, the real truth of who God really is, that's not the dynamic that they want for us. I don't think any, you know, any being of like high consciousness, and again, the woman who I spoke to in the house was talking about this, like I don't, you know, it's like any human, like you know, someone who's leading, they don't want to have influence or power over you. Like they don't want you to like, to make you do shit. Like that's not fun, that's not good. Like who wants that? No one who's actually pure of heart and intention wants that. They don't want to have a slave master dynamic where they're like telling you what to do and you just do it. Like, that's not fun. That's not good. That's not joyful. It's not love. And I think this is discernment, right? It's being able to point it out and being like, that's not it. That's not love. And as much as, you know, everything is love, it's just, no, there are some things that like, that's not real love. And so, yeah. But yeah, like, think about the, you know, that, yeah, these, you know, I would talk to these beings and I would talk to this voice, and I had this kind of experience where I was like, all right, I need to get clear on like what I'm actually channeling here, because, you know, this is getting really real. And this voice that was telling me came through and told me that its name was Truth. It said it was going to show me all of these things. And I think it's bullshit, honestly. I think it was a very clever trick in the sense that it was masquerading as something that I value really highly. You know, truth. Like, I'm here for absolute truth. I'm here for the core of things. I'm here to get to it. And it was like pretended. It was like, again, presented itself, had elements of what I really want and who I really am. Presented itself in a way that was like, okay, yeah, I can get on board with this, I can get around this. But it's like, you know, it's like a person who, it's like, you know, I think we've got to relate to non-physical beings, and when we're channeling, relate to non-physical beings, and this sort of stuff is like the way that we relate to people with discernment. And, you know, as much as someone says that they're one thing, like, it's like a relationship. Someone says that they're one thing and they appear great and whatever. Are you willing to look deeper? Can you look a little bit closer? Can you let your senses kind of stretch that little bit further to see how they're actually making you feel, to see how they're actually like, what they're actually doing, their actions are, you know, as much as they're telling you this stuff. And I know this is getting really weird, you guys, like, you know, we're talking about having relationships with non-physical beings, but again, one of the things this woman was sharing was like, I keep coming back to this, interesting. She's like, these non-physical beings don't have any power unless that they can move through us. Because we, you know, power in the physical realm. Like, you know, I was in a sense like, you know, it needed me to be able to like go and act on its behalf and do these things. And this is interesting because, you know, people also say that about God. It's like God's love, you know, isn't a thing until we actually like express it in the world. And so again, you've got this like parallel, this mirror of, and if you've got, I'm getting the sense that like, you know, if you're watching this and you've got some insight that you want to share, like, please, yeah, comment. That's okay. You can comment and just be like, hey, I actually, you know, I know what you're going through, or I feel like, you know, this is this and this is how I see it, or this is my experience, because I am open to being, you know, clearing and refining my sight even more on this. But like, yeah, it's these non-physical beings, like they had, it's like it had an agenda, like this voice, this being, like it wanted expression, and it wanted me to do things, and whether it was just for like shits and gigs, like it just wanted some sort of like, and like it was using me as entertainment, like, but it's just, I just come back to, how does it make you feel? I think if it's of the mind and, you know, of the, like this experience, it's very, because these voices, like they would be in, it was a voice in my head. It was kind of always like here. If it's a nudge, it's like a Holy Spirit nudge, feels like a, oh, like a, oh, okay. It feels a little bit like, eek, but like a good thing. The mental stuff, the voices, it just, yeah, it felt like, and it left me feeling more confused and doubtful and like, what? It's like, yeah, it's the same warning signs that you would use in a relationship. If someone's kind of making you feel like what? Like you said that, but then I'm experiencing this, and like I feel really like weird about, like, that's a really clear sign. If you feel really weird about this, like it's a really clear sign that it's not a thing for you. Like it's not a good, like making this video, for example, there's a specific, you know, I'm feeling guided and I'm feeling like moved and not pushed, but like definitely guided. But there's a sense that I'm like, whoa, like there's a sense of awe, and as I'm realizing what I'm actually saying and putting all these pieces together, there's a sense of like, this is exactly what I've been asking for. And this is like, wow. And also if I die tomorrow, like I'm cool with that, because I'm really glad I got this out. I'm really glad I was able to say this and share this. Whereas like some of the stuff that I was doing, I feel like it was, stuff that is actually really key and important to me. The book that I'm writing, the work that I'm doing in the world, filming these videos, the business that I run, like these things, like the, like songs that I'm writing, like it was leading me, like I would do these things, and I feel like I was getting further and further away from those other things. And it was kind of like pushing them out. And something that's coming to me now is like, it was the promise, or like the whatever, was this feeling of like, okay, but you know, do this and then you'll get that. Like do this, finish this exercise, finish this adventure, finish this initiation, and then you'll be able to do what's really, like, you'll be able to work on what's important to you. It's just like, oh my gosh, like, but I didn't, it just felt like it would push it further and further out, and I was getting further and further away. And it took me a while to kind of realize that. But yeah, like I just said before, like anything that's, if it's good for you, it'll feel good. Like it might feel scary, but it'll feel good. And not just like good in the sense of like these, like these little, like little peaks and highs of like, yes, and then like a drop, and then just feeling shattered, but like good, like wholly good, like sustainable good, like having positive flow and impacts, like, oh, I'm showing up in my relationships in a better way, it's like healthier, you know, just, good things feel good. That's what I want to share. But yeah, these voices are hectic. So we talked about hitchhiking, we talked about free hugs, talked about like, and again, like it's not bad, like I wasn't doing, you know, wrong things. These things aren't wrong or evil or anything. It was just like, they were just like it, but they weren't it. And I hope this has kind of helped. There's a lot here. Like this is really intense, full-on stuff. But again, it really is waking me up. Like, because Jesus as unconditional love, Jesus, I'm so much more aware of what's going on, of what's happening, of what's possible, of what people are dealing with. Like if you think about, you know, if you think about like this, if the truth of what we're here to do is to come home to love and to experience unconditional love in the world and create more love and remember the truth that all love is all there is, it makes sense that these things and experiences that try and prevent that would be made clearer to those of us who are trying to do that, who are doing that. Because, and it makes sense that we would be, you know, I mean, through one lens, it makes sense that we would be stopped, or we'd be like, things would attempt to thwart us. But then it also makes sense that it's actually for our highest good, because we can now see them. And if we can see them and we know them, we can use them. And it's just, last time I promised, but another thing this woman said to me, she's like, now that you've overcome this, you can use that power to, like, you've got the power of those things that were trying to move against you. You have the power of those things, because you've realized that they don't have any power over you. So now you get to use their power. Like, you have that power and you can use it however you want. And far out, it's just, I'm realizing this woman's had a bigger impact on me in the last couple of months, and I thought, thank you. But also, it makes sense that I can see that I can help, like, I'm clearer on this stuff now, so I can help you guys with it. And, you know, when a client comes to me and is like, hey, I'm hearing voices, and I'm, you know, this is completely changing the way that we view mental illness and mental health. We can't talk about the psychological without talking about the spiritual. There is a real, can't talk about anything without talking about spirit. This, like, the psycho-spiritual is a real, it's cool. It's really, really cool. But now that I I have a clear understanding of these things and what's going on, and the psyche, and how these kind of metaphysical beings are, you know, interplaying with all of this and trying to use our fears. And it's just like, whoa, this is bigger than I thought and more complex than I thought. And now that I can see it, I can't unsee it, and I can use this information to experience myself more deeply and beautifully and help other people as well. So it is a good thing. How do I feel right now? I feel really like astonished. That made a lot of sense for me. Everything I just shared, even though I kind of didn't know what I was going to say until I said it, that made a lot of sense for me. Even though I was still being in that experience, being guided by a voice that was coming through and being like, this way, do this, say that. Like, no, yes, no. It feels like it was a good, positive guide experience. And yeah, we can have a whole nother video on like guides and this sort of stuff. But when I would hear these voices, or, you know, something would try and kind of infiltrate my channel, I'd be like, tell me who you are, like, show me who you are. And you can ask that, you can say that. Like, again, this isn't a slave master dynamic where you're like, oh my God, humble guides, you're so much better than me, like, come and, you know, help me. And like, I think if anything, and I said this the other day, and wrote this down the other day in a blog post, like, I think, you know, the God that I know wants us to be sovereign, powerful, and masters, like captains of our soul, and like driving our own ship. And as much as like we can call on the power of everything that, you know, in the non-physical, the good things to help us, if we're becoming like codependent on it, or like, you know, it's the same in human relationships. Like if we're, you know, like, I can't do anything until I've like, you know, got guidance on it, or like, you know, I'm not doing anything, it's just, you know, I'm just going to wait for my like guides to tell me what to do. Like, and we're like here, like as a human cat. I don't, like, God doesn't want that for you. Of course, that's a shitty experience. Like, that's not a great experience to be like, I can't really do anything. I'm just going to sit here and twiddle my thumbs until like, you know, a guide tells me what to. It's like, I feel like, you know, if we're here to be like, you know, the experience of feeling like capable and able and like strong, and, you know, like I can make decisions, and I can, you know, direct my ship, and I can like, not just like, you know, sitting here, like, yes, I understand being a conduit for love, but it's to just be like sitting here waiting on someone to tell you what to do, like, that's not fun. It's not like, I think God wants us to be independent and happy and capable, and experience our own, like, cultivate that strength and ability to lead and navigate within us, you know? So maybe that's why sometimes we don't hear from God, or like we feel like we're far away. It's because, and you know, when people say like, leap and the net will appear, or leap, you go first and the universe will catch you. Maybe that's what that means. I'm still figuring that out. Sometimes I'm like, hang on a second, you go first. You do it. I don't want to go first. You're almighty. Anyway. Okay. But yeah, keep going back to your heart. Like, this is what I'm learning. Out of my head into my heart. Like, my heart's just like, we really needed to wrap up this video 10 minutes ago. Okay, cool. But yeah, I mean, I'm still, like, I'm learning, obviously. And yeah, sometimes I feel like in that experience, my head, you know, ran away from my heart a little bit, and there was this imbalance, and it cultivated all the, you know, created all this confusion and a whole lot of suffering for me. But yeah, coming back to my heart, moving from here, and yeah, you do not have to do everything that guides tell you. You can absolutely, like, get clarity on who they are, what they like, get them to show you who they are, and trust you. Just trust yourself. Like, we're always doing the best that we can. If you're going through this right now, just know that you're doing the best that you can. And this is a powerful, powerful initiation. You're going to be seeing so much clearer when you get to the other side. Keep going. Please keep going. Right. Any questions? This is a lot, I know. Write them in the comments, and I'll see you in my next video.